Welcome to Nature Cures with Stasia Alicia, where we explore inspiring stories of natural healing and transformation. I'm your host, Stasia Alicia, and I'm so excited to have you here today. Imagine being told that surgery was your only option, but refusing to accept that as your fate. That's exactly what Keisha from Happy Womb Club did when she was diagnosed with a massive fibroid that made her look 6 months pregnant. Doctors insisted on surgery, but she chose a different path. Not only did she shrink her fibroid naturally, but she also reversed chronic anemia, healed from DVT, and reclaimed her health, energy, and confidence. Today, she's here to share exactly how she did it and how you can take control of your own healing journey. Get ready for an inspiring and eye opening conversation. Hi, Keisha.
Hi, Stasia.
Welcome. So let's start. Can you tell us a little about your life and what life was like before your fibroid diagnosis?
Sure. So prior to my fibroid diagnosis, I had what I thought was a very active, disease-free, healthy lifestyle. And even upon my first diagnosis, when I first discovered that I had a fibroid, my gynecologist was like, "This is really tiny. You're super active. You're super fit. Don't worry about it. Just ignore it. Sometimes they go away on their own." That's how I felt. I never had a bother. I never had an issue with anything major. Never been to the hospital. Didn't really get sick. I felt I was perfectly fine.
So, how did you feel when the doctor actually said that you needed surgery?
Okay, well, that happened many, many years later.
Oh.
And I always knew from the very first time I was given that specific advice that surgery was not in the cards for me. I had no interest in going under anesthesia. I'm not one of those persons who had that amount of faith in being put to sleep and being essentially cut open. So it never felt like it was an option for me. It never sat well with me.
But many women feel that surgery is their only option. So, what would make you feel otherwise?
I think because, as I said, even prior to my fibroid diagnosis, I was always interested in alternative, healthy lifestyles. So I was always plant-based. I was always in the gym. I was always researching the effects of different foods. Mind you, my knowledge and exposure was limited at the time, but I still had a very curious ear and a curious eye for natural remedies. It just never sat well with me intuitively to deal with a lifestyle issue by way of surgery. It just never sat well with me. So for me, I automatically rejected it. I had a visceral reaction that this is not for me.
I love that. I always hear you saying that the more bitter things you consume, the sweeter you will become. What does that mean?
So, think of the old, it's kind of a poem or a story that we're told as children that little boys are made of puppy tails and little girls are made of sweets and all of that. I actually believe that we have been seriously misled, and subconsciously, women are of the view that we naturally gravitate towards sweets, candies. And it's been in the marketing for as long as anyone can remember. If you think about Valentine's Day, if you think about anything to do with candy, sweets, bright pink color, frosting, the coffee shops do it. It's all targeted mainly to women. And we have this idea that, oh, you know, I have a sweet tooth, I'm on my period, I need candy, I need chocolate. And it's reinforced by popular messaging, marketing, that there is some affinity with femininity and sugar. And what I have discovered along my own personal journey and also from other women is that it's quite the opposite. That women really ought to be consuming more bitter herbs, more bitter greens. Every single herb that is highly beneficial towards women, none of them are sweet. So you think about dandelion, you think about bitterwood, nettle leaves, red raspberry leaf. Nothing is sweet about these herbs, and yet they contain some of the most potent ingredients, potent minerals that's best for our healing. Even if you talk about yeast infections, and you understand the power of a plant like oregano that helps to rid the gut of yeast, help to rid the body of yeast. These things are not sweet necessarily to the tongue, but they're sweet to the body. And so it's become a mantra of mine that I share with women that, listen, if you want to be sweet, if you want to be disease-free, if you want to look youthful, if you want to be glowing, if you want to smell sweet, if you want your pH to be balanced, you have to start indulging in bitter things. Forget what we were told. You have to start indulging and learning to love and embrace bitter plants, bitter herbs.
Wow. So that's a misconception that we have as women because of the marketing. What other myths and misconceptions are there for women who want to heal from fibroids?
I think the biggest one, it has become popular in the last 10 to 15 years, and that is this false sense of femininity, this performative idea of what it means to be feminine. And it has become extremely dangerous. And in fact, I believe a contributory factor to why there is a rise in the presence of fibroids among women. Because think about it, and this is especially true for Black women as well. Everything that is supposed to make you more feminine, more appealing, hyper feminine, as some femininity coaches call it, requires you to add things, whether it's by way of an extension, whether it's by way of a glue on your scalp, glue on your lashes, makeup, acrylic in your nail bed. All of these things potentially are extremely toxic, and they contain known endocrine disruptors. And so the irony is that in the chase, in the hunt to become more feminine, we're actually losing the essence of our femininity, which is the health of our uterus.
Wow.
The health of our uterus is being compromised because we're chasing a false sense of femininity, which tells us that if we're not wearing synthetic hair, we're not feminine. If we don't have long extensions down to our butts, we're not feminine. If you wear your natural curls or your natural kinks or coils, that's not quite high value. That's not quite it. You have to be constantly doing something, adding things. And for the most part, these things are toxic. So look at what we're trading. We're trading true femininity, which is balanced hormones, healthy uterus, pain-free cycles, fibroid-free uterus, no PCOS. We're trading all of that to look like an image that someone told us is feminine.
Wow. So you spoke on the things that we are adding to ourselves that are toxic. And basically, there are some persons who would say that fibroids is genetic, right? And there are some persons who would say that that really doesn't matter. You know, if it's in the genes, you're going to get it whether or not. So what would you say? You mentioned one or two already, but what would you say are the common causes of fibroids?
I think it's a mistake to point to things like genetics when so many of us are literally living the same life. If you take 100 random women in the modern world, whether it's the Caribbean, whether it's the US, 100 of them will be more similar than they are dissimilar. It doesn't matter their genetics. All of those women, or the vast majority of any sample of women you take, they're going to be vitamin D deprived. What do I mean by that? We conduct ourselves in a way where we go to work in buildings, or we're in vehicles, or we're at home. We are not out in nature absorbing the sun, right? That's number one. Number two, going back to what I spoke about, we are either using synthetic braiding here, we're using beauty products that are toxic, we're wearing things that are made from materials that are pretty much plastic, garbage, waste from the industrial chemical companies, right? We are wearing makeup that is toxic. Many women are in toxic relationships. I believe maybe 1 in 4 women have dealt with some kind of abuse in their lifetime. So the commonalities has more to do with our lifestyle and our experience as women in the modern day realm, as opposed to genetics. You and I could be completely genetically distant, not related at all, but we're living the exact same lifestyle. We have a corporate job, we stop at Starbucks in the morning, and we get our caramel shot and sugar this, sugar that. We go to brunch on the weekends and we have mimosas, fried chicken, waffles, you name it. So I believe we need to take a closer look at our lifestyle as opposed to our genetics. And that's when we'll start to find the answers. The problem is when you start to look at your lifestyle, it takes a lot of accountability, and it takes you to be brave and willing to admit that a lot of the things we enjoy simply don't serve us.
Ooh, wow. So what would you say is the role of stress and emotion in womb health?
So there is a doctor, you may have seen his podcasts or his videos. He wrote a book called When the Body Says No, The Hidden Cost of Stress. His name is Dr. Gabor Mate. I have a lot of respect for him, partly because he has done extensive research on how stress causes disease in the body, things like cancers, autoimmune diseases. One of the things he has been known for pointing out is that when it comes to stress, the demographic that is affected the most are women, particularly married women, women in relationships, because we tend to absorb the stress in our relationships, whether it's toxic or even if you have a non-toxic partner. The average woman she's doing the planning for the family. She's doing what they refer to as the emotional labor. She might be more likely to have her system unregulated because she has to be catering to the husband, the children, etc. And that's in the best case scenario. That's even when you have a supportive partner.
Yeah.
Much less women who are stuck in financially abusive situations, physically abusive situations, women who are trapped. And so there is concrete evidence, and there have been numerous studies, that what happens to women when we're under stress, cortisol level rises, your hormones are severely affected, and it's difficult to get out of that loop. And so your liver, which typically would be or should be able to release certain toxins, release anything excess that's not good for you, becomes compromised. It becomes compromised because your system is compromised. You start to hold on to your metabolic waste. And over time, that builds up, whether it's cysts, whether it's tumors, fibroids, whatever it is. And so it's very, very important for women to understand that stress is not something to be played with. You know, we throw around this term soft life. I really want us to start embracing true soft life, because stress will mess you up as a woman.
Wow. You're speaking some stuff right here. Let's go back to your personal journey now. When you rejected surgery, what were the first changes that you made?
So when I rejected surgery, I made no changes because, again, I was under the impression that I was healthy. It was just a glitch in the system, and I genuinely thought it would go away on its own. I was like, oh, whatever. I'll just continue doing what I'm doing. When it started to get really bad, again, going back to stress, I had to make adjustments. The first adjustment I made was in my level of starch consumption. And I had no idea starch was so problematic because I was ignorant. Just eating a plant-based diet, so having regular things like peas, beans, yams, banana chips, French fries. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not eating meat, I'm exercising, I'm drinking water, everything was fine. But when I started to cut back on my starch intake, I realized a huge difference. So that was the first step I made, is just cutting back on starch. And of course, you know, the sugars and the fried stuff like that.
What role did fasting play in your healing?
Major role. Major. I can't stress enough the importance of fasting. It does a lot of things. One of the first things fasting does, it trains the mind to understand what your triggers really are. It allows you to understand the meaning behind your cravings. So typically, when we have cravings, or when we feel hungry, or when we have a desire or an appetite to eat a particular thing, we don't think too deep. You know, we don't think, why am I craving something salty? Why am I craving something crunchy? When you go into a fasting state, it forces you to recognize that the vast majority of cravings isn't physical, it's mental, it's emotional. People who are more angry tend to crave salty, crunchy things. People who are sad tend to crave creamy, dairy things. Because remember, dairy is literally the lactating fluid of a mother. So a lot of people crave dairy out of loneliness, to comfort. You know, people always talk about comfort foods, ice cream, cake, cookies, even just a warm, milky drink at night. It's literally the fluid from a lactating mother. And lactation is designed to heal, or to comfort and soothe your offspring. So once you start to fast, you start to realize, hang on a minute. Maybe after the first 24 hours, you might be like, oh, I can't do this. But once a certain time passes, you're like, oh, I really wasn't craving that. That was just me being bored. That was just me being frustrated. That was just me feeling lonely. That was just me feeling agitated, anxious. You understand yourself, your cravings, and so you begin to distance yourself from them. So I'm no longer, you no longer say things like, oh, I love crunchy snacks. No, you eat these things because it's a crutch for your anxiety. And so it forces you to self-soothe in ways that have nothing to do with food. Maybe take a walk, maybe do some yoga poses, maybe read a book, maybe call a loved one, maybe go to sleep, maybe hydrate, drink some water. So that's the first thing it does. It removes the dependence that we have on food, because you get to understand what your cravings are about. The second thing it does is it's very calming. It's very calming. Going back to the first thing, you know, because we tend to have an anxious attachment to food. When there is nothing to grab, nibble, you close your mouth, you start to think, you engage your mind. You know, they say an empty stomach, a busy mind. So you start to think more, you start to reflect more. Some people connected to be more spiritual, and I can understand why. Because when your gut is empty, you really have to connect with yourself. And then on a physical plane now, you start to release waste. You release a ridiculous amount of waste. There are people who have gone 10, 14 days with no food and still releasing fecal matter. And so it's like shocking, like, oh my gosh, you realize how much we eat as human beings. If on day 10 of only having water, your intestine still has fecal matter. It's like, wow. So you release a lot of mucus, you release a lot of waste. You feel lighter, you feel freer, you feel more balanced. That's the good part. There's not so good aspects to fasting too, but you know, that's the good part. Of course, there's weakness, there's you might have a crash out day because it's like a lot of these foods are like drugs. Sugar is like a drug. A lot of these things are literal addiction. So you may have mood swings, you might feel extremely lethargic. So it's not all perfect, but at the end of it, you feel amazing. You feel amazing. And your body goes to work. Your body goes to say, okay, well, we don't have food. Let's see what's happening here. Let's investigate. Okay, what's this tumor doing here? You need to come out. Or, you know, hang on a minute, what's happening here? This cyst has been here for a while. Let's start to get rid of this. We don't need any excess baggage. Since we don't have any fuel, we're running a tight ship here, Fibroid, you gotta go. You have to leave because we don't have time for this. And so that's how it works. Some people call it autophagy, where the body eats itself or gets rid of the bad cells. And so that's what happens during the fasting.
You had said that you removed starch. How long after making that first change did you start to see changes in your body?
Immediately. I lost a lot of weight. I felt lighter. I had more energy. That was the first thing I noticed when I started to make changes. My energy levels went through the roof. I was starting to consume a lot more sea moss. I used to tell my mom, it's like I can't just go up the flight of stairs one step at a time anymore. I feel like I have to be jumping over 3, 4 steps because I have so much energy. I'll be up at 3 a.m. wondering, why am I up? The energy was crazy. So yeah, that's the first thing that happened.
I saw one of your posts where you said that because of the fibroids and because of how large it got, that you had DVT. You were diagnosed with DVT and they told you that you had to get blood thinners. Can you share some more on that and letting us know as well what exactly is DVT?
So DVT is deep vein thrombosis. It can be caused by a number of things. Basically, it's a big blood clot. When you have some blockage, some people get it when they are traveling for long periods, they're sitting for long periods in a particular position. That's one of the reasons why when you travel for a long flight, they encourage you to move your body and get up and walk around. It's just when the blood flow has been constricted for a period of time, it develops into a clot. And it can be dangerous because the clot sometimes moves. So for doctors, for medical practitioners, one of their biggest concerns when it comes to blood clots is it moving towards your lung or your chest region. Because some people, when that happens, they will have like a heart attack or they might, you know, it's one of those things that they consider to be very, very potentially life-threatening, very dangerous. And so what happened is because it was resting one side, I developed a blood clot. And so when I went to see my gynecologist, I wouldn't say it's my gynecologist, but I went to see a gynecologist, and his view was, oh my goodness, look at this, called on excitement. This, you see, this is what I've been warning you about. You need to go to the hospital immediately. I said, really? Is it that serious? He's like, yes. So I went to the hospital. They said they're going to admit me. After a few hours of being on a drip that I have no idea what was in the drip, another doctor came around and said, why is she here? They checked all my vitals. They said, why is she here? Just give her some painkillers and blood thinners and send her home, which is what happened. And when the gynecologist called me, he was angry at me. Why did they send you out? As though I had influenced them to release me. I'm like, they said I didn't need to be there. So they sent me home with blood thinners and painkillers. I did not take the blood thinners. I'm not gonna take something to thin my blood. You see, there's just certain things that for me just don't make any sense. It's not about, let me research the science into this. It didn't even get to that level. It was simply, why am I thinning my blood? And then when you read the side effects and how it can cause excessive bleeding, at this point I'm anemic, I'm thinking, why do I need to do this? So I didn't take it. I just took, researched what herbs I needed, started taking those, and that's how I healed it.
Can you share some of the herbs that you use for the DVT to get rid of it?
So one of the main ones is something, it's not a herb, it's a green, it's called alfalfa, but it's very rich in vitamin K. And in fact, they caution against using alfalfa if you're on blood thinning medication because it already has that effect of making the blood run freer. I took something called bladderwrack, which is a sea vegetable, lots of sea moss as well, and a lot of iron-rich herbs. So like bitterwood, sarsaparilla, nettle, blue vervain, and there's another one I'm missing, but lots of iron-rich herbs, sea vegetables, sea moss, alfalfa, and lots of spring water.
Okay,
and ginger. Ginger as well.
How do you do the ginger? What do you do?
So you peel it, grate it into a big pot, bring it to a boil, and let like a big pot of ginger and just sit throughout the day.
Okay. All right, so you touched on the anemia a while ago. So you had a fibroid, a large fibroid, you had anemia, and I also saw that you had depression as well. How did you work on the anemia? Because you said it was chronic anemia.
It was really bad. So one of the things I had to learn is that when it comes to dealing with low iron, it's not simply enough to consume iron. You also have to make sure your body is able to absorb it. I think we tend to forget that part. So it's consumption, but it's also absorption. So you could be taking all these iron-rich foods and iron stuff, but your body simply isn't absorbing it. So one of the things I had to do, I had to make sure to focus on cleansing my liver, cleansing my kidneys, cleansing my bowels with the fruit fasting, the water fasting, and just really putting my body in a state to be able to absorb all the iron I was giving it, because it's not like I wasn't consuming iron. I just wasn't absorbing it. It took several months to get it back up to a level where I felt normal again. But that was the process, just cleansing the liver, cleansing the body, cleansing the bowels, making sure kidneys are filtering, making sure the liver can filter, do its job, and then, yeah, top up on all the iron-rich herbs that I mentioned.
after healing yourself, you decided that you wanted to help other women to heal as well. What
Yes.
inspired you to start the Happy Womb Club and just to help others to heal their womb?
When I was going through my fibroid crisis, it was the loneliest time of my life. It was so lonely because the few people that I mentioned it to, they acted like I was some kind of leper. Like they've never heard of this. Oh my God, are you going through that? Like it was so lonely. It was so isolating. I thought that I was one of the few warriors on earth that were actually going through this. I couldn't find any advice specific to me, as in a woman who was child-free, who was plant-based. You know, you go to someone and they say, yeah, just stop eating the chicken. Okay. You go to another person and they say, yeah, just do this. And you're like, okay. I just could not find a source of comprehensive information that was helping women of all different demographics, all different lifestyles. And so I thought, well, even if it's just a few of us, my story will help the few of us. I was shocked to discover when I started to share my story, how many women were going through the exact same thing. How many women messaged me to say, oh my God, that's exactly how my belly looks now. Oh my God, I'm going through this DVT thing too. I was like, really? And so what started out as a very shy, half stepping, it just blew up because I said, oh, these women actually need the support. I didn't have it. I had to go through it myself. I had to figure this thing out myself. And so I said, all right, well, the happy womb life chose me. I didn't choose it. So here I am.
People hear us saying that, the fibroids was large. Can you let the audience know, give an example, so they can imagine or
like a small watermelon.
What it looks like.
Like a watermelon, not the big one, like a small to medium sized one. I think how they categorize it is it would be the size of a 6-month uterus, 6-month fetus. Yeah, it was really fat and big.
So basically, it looked as if you were pregnant.
Yeah.
What are some of the common challenges that people come to you with in the Happy Womb Club? Because maybe it's not only fibroids, but the challenges, whether it's surrounding fibroids or even other womb health issues.
Yeah, the main thing that women are struggling with, it's a silent crisis, is excessive bleeding. There are women, and because in our society, you can't really talk about it. So there are women who have been having their period since January and it's still going on. There are women who, when they are on their cycle, they have to wear diapers. There are women who they have to spread plastic over their beds just to sleep during their periods. There are women who are clotting so heavily they have to wear 3 leggings under their work suit. Heavy bleeding is a major, major problem. And of course, that connects to the anemia. So a lot of irritability, a lot of insomnia, a lot of depression, weakness. Women are really struggling with that.
Can you walk us through what it's like to work with you?
Sure. So the 2 main things that I offer, one is a month-long boot camp. That's like group coaching. So it's virtual. You can join wherever you are in the world. And it's a community of women online where we meet. I give classes to these women over the entire course of the month. You get a program to follow. You get recommended foods, recipes, etc., and specific herbs. And if needed, because sometimes some women within the group may need specific attention for whatever they're going through, you will get that throughout the month as well. But it's really group coaching. It's a great way to form community with other women that are having similar struggles. It's intensive because you learn as well. It's like a 4-week course. And it's not just women with fibroids who join, women with PCOS, women with endometriosis, women who have nothing at all. They just want to be prepared. Some of my girlies are like, listen, I want to be ready if this thing happens to me. So let me learn from now. So there's that. And there's also one-on-one sessions where a woman comes to me. She doesn't want to be in a group. She wants privacy. She wants a handheld approach because for whatever reason, she needs that. And then now I can guide her along her process for her specific lifestyle because women are different.
Yeah.
Some women are mothers, some women are the breadwinners, some women are housewives, some women are disabled, some women may live in a very, very cold climate where they might need a specific guidance on how to, get that healing going on, that circulation, that all of that, even when they're in a colder climate. So that's how the one-on-one sessions help. So those are really my 2 ways. Outside of that, I have my ebooks for women who they don't want to talk to nobody. They don't want to be in no community with nobody. They just want something, a guide, a book that they can work with on their own or with their friends, with their family. And
What's the name of that?
The book?
Yeah.
So I have a guide to fruit fasting. I have womb healing recipes. What else do I have? Oh, and 10 steps to shrink your fibroids naturally.
So you have helped so many women to heal their womb. Can you share 1 or 2 powerful success stories? You don't have to call names. Yeah, success stories or transformation stories.
Yeah, one of the stories was one of the women I spoke about earlier, that she was so frustrated. Her last straw was when she went to her sister's wedding and they were sharing a hotel room. She went overseas with her sister, but they were sharing a hotel room because she's a bridesmaid. And she couldn't sleep on the bed with her sister. That's how heavy she was bleeding. And she was devastated. She was hurt. She was embarrassed. And she reached out to me and, I put her on a series of fasting and herbs. And within 6 weeks, the bleeding stopped. She went back to a regular cycle. And it took some time. We worked together for about 5 to 6 months. And to her surprise, she actually got pregnant. The baby is maybe 3 months old now.
Wow.
Yes.
I'm sure stories like these, but let me ask it anyway. What's the most rewarding part of doing this work?
The community of women that I've formed. And when you teach, you learn even more. And it's just like a learning process and connecting with women over this common issue that so many of us face, bringing awareness to it. It's just really, really fulfilling coming from a place where I had no support. I was completely ignorant, to know that I am that support. So that's the thing that I feel most proud of.
Yeah, you definitely should be proud of that. Trust me. You spoke about the toxicity in the things that we're adding on our body. So there are things like shampoos, deodorants, lotions, toothpaste that we are using, but that's all we would know to use. Is there any natural alternatives to some of these things?
There are lots of natural alternatives, lots and lots and lots. I have a saying that I coined. The Jamaicans will relate to it. I say, whatever you pre, you shall see, which simply means that we're constantly moving towards our most dominant thoughts. And once you are ready, you're going to start to see things around you like, oh, this is so obvious. This was always here. Oh my gosh, this was always in my backyard. Oh, I pass this in the health food store all the time. It's the same with when it comes to these natural things. They are here. They've always been here. Look at the loofah. I'm not talking the sponge that they call loofah. I'm talking about the original loofah plant, which kind of looks like a cucumber or maybe a zucchini. That plant grows wild in Jamaica. You can go to the market and people will have the loofah, the dried loofah. It's excellent for circulation. It helps with kidney filtration. It makes your skin glow, and it's 100%. Forget organic. Don't even talk about organic. It thing grow wild, natural, right? You don't need to use no plastic. You don't need for you. You can use it for dry brushing. You can use it for bathing. You can use it on your feet. And these things have always been here, and it's dirt cheap. It's dirt cheap. In Jamaica too, there's something that the elders use, Rastafari community use as well. It's kind of dying out. It's called a chew stick. But there are companies who actually have chew stick powder that you can use as your toothpaste. There are companies who have taken it a step further, and they actually make toothpaste that we're familiar with, the tube toothpaste using neem oil, tea tree oil, bentonite clay. There are tons of DIY videos on YouTube of people showing you how to make your own deodorant, your own this, your own that. And on the topic of deodorant, you remember, let us go back to my original saying, the more bitter things you eat, the sweeter you become. So a lot of these candy, sugar, chocolate is contributing to the bad odors. Get them out, and you'll see that your body odor changes. So there's many things. There are many, many things. The list is endless. There's toxic-free nail polish now. There's toxic-free makeup, skincare. There's natural butters. You know, so
all right. So what other ancient or holistic practices do you use to maintain womb health?
So there are a number of ancient practices that we all can employ. For example, one of my favorite ones is yoni steaming or vaginal steaming. This goes as far back as we can think, where women would use different herbs, sometimes sea salt, sometimes things like cloves, or even just plain hot water. And they would stoop over it, and the aromatherapy from the plants or from the water can actually heal the vaginal cavity, heal the uterus, help to get rid of mucus buildup, help to get rid of bacteria, foul odor, sometimes yeast infections. It's a very, very powerful and yet accessible ancient way that we used to use, and I'm glad to see it coming back to heal our reproductive organs naturally, or not even necessarily heal. Sometimes we are caught up in this idea that everything has to be a response to illness or a response to disease. Our ancestral mothers oftentimes employed these practices just as a way of a healthy maintenance, just to keep the body strong, fresh, all of those good things. So you don't have to wait until you have a diagnosis or a problem to use some of these methods. Abdominal massages, castor oil is very good to use on your lower abdomen. Yoga, a lot of the poses in yoga focuses on healing the uterus by way of improving circulation, improving oxygenation, warming up the uterus, right? And there are just a lot of ancient herbs, whether you go back into our African ancestral mothers, or you look at ancient Chinese medicine, you look at any Eastern philosophy, there has always been practices, holistic practices that are designed to help women heal their bodies. Contrary to popular belief, the father of gynecology is the creator of something that is relatively new. It's a philosophy that was born from him experimenting on enslaved African women. And if you look at these practices, the cutting, the operation without anesthesia, a lot of them are objectively barbaric. And we see some of these practices now in modern day gynecology, where the first option is always to cut, always to remove, always to medicate, always to add a chemical. This is a relatively new practice. The gynecology is a new practice. Go look it up, guys. It's Dr. Marion Sims. That's his name. So before Marion Sims, before the father of gynecology, we had great mothers who have left the way for us to follow. We just need to follow it.
Are there specific herbs that you use during the yoni steaming that are good for womb
There
hair?
is lots and lots and lots of herbs. You know, you can simply use water. You can use sea salt by itself. You can use cloves. You can use motherwort. You can use yarrow. You can use dried organic rosebuds. You can use hibiscus. It's just a matter of determining what the woman needs in this specific case, because each yoni steam is not going to be a one-stop shop for every woman. And every time you yoni steam as a woman, you might be addressing a different need. So maybe you just want to have a quick cleanse after your period. Maybe you want to get rid of an odor. Maybe you're feeling depressed. Some women utilize yoni steaming to tighten the vaginal cavity. Some women utilize yoni steaming to address vaginal dryness. Sometimes you can use it as a picker-upper if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling disconnected from your partner. So it really depends on what purpose you want the yoni steaming to serve, and you will use herbs according to that purpose.
What's your take on supplements? Do you avoid them completely, or are there any that you recommend?
I think the word supplements for me is a controversial issue, because like with many other things, we have to be careful and mindful of labels. When people talk about supplements, so for example, if I say I need more nettle in my diet, and I take nettle in the form of a tincture or in the form of a dried herb that has been put in a capsule, the medical fraternity, big pharma, considers that a supplement. But is it really a supplement when nettle is technically just food? You see, the problem we have is that we don't understand what food is. We have categorized junk and garbage and genetically modified substances as food. And when it comes to our actual food, we now label it as a supplement. So part of the reason why that is done is to, one, make money, and to, two, categorize natural foods and foods that are best for you almost in the vein of a medicine, right? So you're gonna start taking more sea moss in your diet. Oh, you're having a supplement. Are you though? You know, if we had a sane society, we wouldn't need to call our food supplement, because we'd wake up every day and we'd go to a plant for iron, we'd go to a plant for magnesium, we'd go to a fruit for folate. We don't live in a sane society. So we eat garbage, we eat junk. And when we realize that, obviously, because we're not eating anything nutritious, our bodies are depleted or lacking certain things, then we turn to what we call supplementation. So my thought is this: we ought to ideally consume what we need to survive, or minerals or chlorophyll, whatever label you want to put on it. That should all be coming from our diet, our daily, regular diet. And if that is not possible for whatever reason, then there's nothing wrong with finding additional clean sources for those said minerals. Now, if you're talking about supplements in the sense of creatine this or things that were made in the lab, vitamin this, vitamin that, which are things that they created. Vitamins is something that they created, right? If you're talking about that, then I tend to advise to stay away from those as far as possible. Stay away from the lab and stick to the trees and the plants.
What's the biggest mistake women make when trying to heal fibroids naturally?
Twofold, and they're both connected. One, they're always comparing themselves to someone else. And two, they're in a rush. So you have a tumor that took years to build, years to grow, and you won't give yourself the grace to even commit to 4 months, 6 months to releasing it from your body, right? So that's the biggest mistake they make. They come to you and say, hey, Stasia, how long did so-and-so get rid of hers? And you say, oh, well, she took a couple months. At the 2 months mark, they're now checking, oh, how comes mine isn't gone yet? Oh my gosh, I need to do this, I need to do that. Relax. Your body grew a tumor in its own time. And with the proper care and with the proper commitment and patience, it will release it in its own time. But far too often, women get caught up in rushing. And part of the reason for that is because they're in a hurry to return to their former lifestyle. If we're being honest, that's the number one question I get. How long will I have to do this for? How long will you have to eat healthy for? No, it's up to you. So yeah, I think that's the main issue, rushing and comparing.
What was the hardest part of your healing journey and how did you overcome it?
The hardest part was feeling isolated and alone and feeling like a leper. And the feeling that something was inherently wrong with me because it wasn't being talked about a lot. Many women were not sharing their story, certainly not the way they're sharing it now. And so that was very, very hard for me. How did I overcome it? Wow, good question. I wouldn't say I overcame it necessarily. You know, when they say, you know, the phrase, the obstacle is the way. I think that my obstacle became my way because I was isolated, because I felt I didn't have support, because I felt misunderstood and alone. It became literally my way. I had to find solutions. I had to dig deeper than what I was being told on the surface, even by herbalists. I had to make it the way for me. So that's how I got rid of it.
If a woman is just getting started and is feeling overwhelmed, what should be the first step that they should take?
If you're feeling overwhelmed, the first thing to do is to, and this might be hard and seem counterintuitive, but the first and most important thing you should do is to remove yourself or to detach yourself from getting rid of your fibroid or healing your fibroid. Completely detach from it. Because you remember we spoke about always moving towards our most dominant thought.
Yeah.
The problem with that is it can also affect us in the negative. So if you're constantly obsessing about something, it will constantly appear in your life.
Yeah.
So what I explain to women is the best approach is not to say, okay, I'm now on my fibroid journey and I gotta get rid of this fibroid. No. Say to yourself instead, I am now living and embracing my most healthy, my most feminine, my most luxurious, my best life in my female body. I am now living in such a way that is nurturing to my body, feeds my uterus, is loving towards my uterus, and out of that, all good things will flow. So think about it. If I am ensuring that I am not consuming toxicity in any form, whether relationship, music, friends, surrounding, food, beauty products, whatever it is, if I'm not consuming that, if I'm only consuming good things, beautiful things, if I'm only consuming things that nourish me, nurture me, feed me, strengthen me, and if I'm constantly positive, do you think that any disease can thrive in such a lifestyle? It's not possible because one is going to affect the other. If I decide I'm not consuming anything toxic, fast food has to go, alcohol has to go, processed sugar has to go, right? Toxic chemicals have to go. If I say I'm going to always nurture and feed my uterus and my body everything it needs, I'm going to increase my iron. I'm going to increase my wound healing herbs. I'm going to indulge in abdominal massages. I might do yoga. I might do more exercising. I might do more stretching. I will stay hydrated. I'll stay positive. Do you see where I'm going?
Yeah, man.
And then in that way, it becomes more of a beautiful experience that you are giving yourself, as opposed to being in the mindset of something is wrong with me. I am fixing myself because I have a disease. I have a tumor. Oh my God. No, don't approach it that way. Each day that you arise and you face whatever life, each step, what can I do in this moment that it is the most nurturing, the least toxic, and it will feed me or give me the things that will make me thrive in this moment, each moment. Each time you go to lunch, what can I do, feed myself, consume in this moment that matches this frequency? It can't be soda. Can't be soda. It can't be some deep fried junk. So you might say, well, at my highest, most feminine, most softest, most nurtured self, I'm going to have some water. I'm going to have a salad. Do you see where I'm coming? I might have some ginger tea for dessert instead of some flour, sugar, butter, egg-filled cake. And you know what? At the end of this meal, I might go for a walk. I might turn off this toxic music and read a book. I might journal. And each day you're going to find that because you're on this journey to nurture yourself in this way, you're going to discover each step of the way additional things to do. That's how it works. Every woman who has ever come in any one of my boot camps or any one of my programs, they never stop adding things to improve their lifestyle. Whether they start to run, they start to do more saunas, they start to do more massages. It's just an increase. It's like a compound effect. So
I love your perspective on that. So let's go into a different segment. This is the final segment, actually. The first one is the rapid fire round. So I'm just going to ask you some questions, some quick questions, and you answer as quickly as you can. A food or herb that you swear by.
sarsaparilla,
A healing ritual or practice you can't live without.
fasting,
One thing you do every morning for womb health.
fasting,
One thing women should stop doing immediately.
giving unfettered access to their womb.
Ooh. All right, roots and remedies. What's one powerful natural remedy every woman should know about?
Shepherd's purse for heavy bleeding.
So this is the Nature Cures challenge for this week. If you could challenge every listener to do one healing habit or thing this week, what would it be?
Skip breakfast.
All right. Healing playlist. What's one song or mantra that kept you going on your healing journey?
Strength, Courage, and Wisdom by India Irie.
Sing part of it for me.
Oh, it's time to step out on faith. It's time to show my face. Procrastination had me down, but look what I have found. I found strength, courage, and wisdom. It was inside of me all along. Strength, courage, and wisdom inside of me.
I love it. India Ari is awesome. All right. So if you could design a starter pack for the woman just beginning her fibroid healing journey, what would be in it? You can put anything in it. You can put books, you can put herbs, you can put anything. You can be as creative as you want to be.
I wouldn't put anything in it. I would start by a process of elimination. If she normally has chicken and fries and soda, I'll tell her to remove the soda and start having water. If she normally have oxtail and rice and peas, I would remove the rice and peas and add salads. When people are at ground zero, sometimes the best way to introduce them to a healthier lifestyle is to show them what a small step can make. And also, for the purposes of sustainability, you don't necessarily want someone to go on a crash, rush program. Some people can manage it, sure, but we have to hold space for the women who ginger is bitter for them. They don't like the taste of water. They think coconut water tastes too natural. They think lettuce is bitter. We have to hold space for those women who grew up in homes where it wasn't standard to have a cooked meal for dinner. So all they've known all their life is fast food. We have to hold space for those women. And that's who comes to mind when you give me that hypothetical example. The woman who, she doesn't know what on earth I'm talking about. What? Herbs? I would simply start by slowly removing things from her diet so she can see the effects for herself. And then by the end of week 2, she'll be calling me, listen, I don't want none more of this chicken because the way I feel better just from giving up soda, I'm ready. That's what I would do.
I thought though you'd have put your book in the starter pack.
Well, a big part of my book is applicable to those situations.
Okay.
Because as I said earlier, one of the first things I recommend in my book is just to skip breakfast. As easy as that. That's, for a lot of people, that's the introduction to fasting. Instead of waking up to eggs, bacon, bread, or in Jamaica, stewed chicken, dumpling, or beef patties, just waking up to a cup of herbal tea or to a warm glass of water can do miracles for a lot of people. So yeah.
All right. Final question. What does healing mean to you?
Healing never ends. Healing is a journey that we take with ourselves to constantly nurture ourselves to the most optimal state of mental, physical, and emotional well-being. And it's a process of discovery, rediscovery, letting go, going back. It's a beautiful journey that never ends. And it gets better when you share it with others.
Wow. Thank you so much, Keisha, for coming on, sharing your experience, being vulnerable.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Trust me, sharing your knowledge, your perspective. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Thanks for having me, and thanks for having this platform.
You
You
are
are
most
doing
welcome.
very good work, and I'm so happy to be a part of it.
Thank you.
To our listeners and viewers, I hope that today's episode inspired you as much as it inspired me. Remember, healing is a journey, not a destination, and every small step you take counts. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this story. You can check out more episodes of Nature Cures with Stasia Alicia on Amazon Audible, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube Music. If you're watching on YouTube, please check out the description section for links and to stay connected with me on social media. Until next time, take care of yourself and remember, nature cures. Blessed love.